Answering machine detection. Best practices for modern lead generation. Modern outbound has a voicemail problem. If your team is still burning prime calling hours, listening to voicemail greetings, you're paying for work that doesn't create pipeline. In 2025, about 80% of cold calls go to voicemail, and roughly 87% of Americans avoid unknown numbers. So the average dial is increasingly a recording, not a conversation. That's why answering machine detection, or AMD, has become one of the highest ROI levers in modern lead generation. At SalesHive, we treat cold calling like a measurable, improvable channel, just like cold email. The goal isn't to dial more, it's to shorten time to conversation so our SDRs spend their day qualifying real buyers instead of waiting through greetings and beeps. When the dial-to-meeting baseline is only around 2 to 3%, small efficiency gains compound fast across a full outbound program. This is where the right outbound sales agency mindset matters. Tooling alone doesn't fix the problem, but well-tuned AMD plus a real calling and follow-up playbook does. Whether you run an in-house SDR agency model or partner with a cold calling agency, the teams that win are the ones that operationalize AMD as a process, configured by segment, monitored weekly, and aligned with compliance from day one. Why answering machine detection matters in 2025. The math is blunt. If 80% of your dials hit voicemail, manual voicemail handling becomes a hidden tax on productivity. Reps can spend about 15% of their work time leaving messages and listening to greetings, often translating to roughly 25 hours per month per rep that could be reallocated to live conversations, research, and follow-up. AMD exists to reclaim that time without sacrificing the quality of your outreach. AMD listens to the first moments after pickup and classifies the answer as a live person or a machine, voicemail or IVR. If it's a machine, your dialer can route to a voicemail drop, reschedule the lead, or end the call quickly. If it's human, it routes the call to a rep. In practice, this routing decision becomes a lever that changes how many real conversations your outsourced sales team or internal team can have per hour. But AMD isn't just about speed, it's about protecting opportunity. In B2B, the cost of a false positive, a real CFO classified as a machine and dropped, is far greater than the cost of a false negative, a voicemail that still reaches a rep. That's why the best cold calling services tune AMD to reduce false positives first, then layer in efficiency once outcomes are stable. How AMD works and what accuracy really means. Most AMD engines use a mix of timing signals, pauses and greeting length, speech pattern analysis, cadence and conversational turns, and sometimes beep or tone detection. The newer generation adds machine learning, which can improve classification across different carriers, regions, and voicemail styles. Research is moving quickly. One 2024 paper reported AMD test accuracy over 96 to 98% when combining neural networks with silence detection. In real-world outbound, advertised accuracy still varies widely, and environment matters. Many modern tools report practical accuracy in the 80 to 97% range depending on configuration, call paths, and how aggressively you optimize for speed. Some vendors claim up to 97% advanced AMD performance and pair that with case studies showing meaningful revenue impact when voicemail detection is improved. The right takeaway isn't pick the highest number, it's pick a configuration you can trust. We recommend treating AMD as a measurable system with QA. Spot check recordings, compare dispositions to outcomes, and tune based on segment risk. This is the same discipline high-performing teams apply to cold email agency deliverability. Monitor the signals, then adjust before results degrade. Implementation. Configure AMD like a revenue system. The fastest way to get AMD wrong is to crank it to fastest and walk away. Aggressive settings can increase false positives, creating dead air or hang-ups that damage your brand and inflate abandoned call risk. Instead, start conservative with longer detection windows, test with internal and friendly external numbers, and only tighten speed after your logs show stable outcomes. Segmenting is the difference between AMD as a dialer feature and AMD as a go-to-market advantage. For strategic accounts, we bias toward protecting live answers, even if a rep occasionally hears a voicemail intro. For high-volume SMB campaigns, we may accept slightly more false negatives to maximize talk time. This is how a B2B sales agency approach turns one dialer into multiple purpose-built systems. Compliance needs to sit in the build, not the post-mortem. U.S. rules and guidance around abandoned calls, commonly measured against a 3% threshold, mean misfires aren't just annoying, they can become a documented risk if you generate silent calls at scale. Document your configuration, monitor abandonment by campaign, and treat any human-dropped signal as a priority incident, not a shrug. In B2B, one dropped decision maker is more expensive than 50 extra voicemails. Tune AMD to protect live answers first, then optimize for speed. Best practices. Pair AMD with a real voicemail and follow-up plan. AMD should not be used to avoid voicemail. It should be used to be intentional about voicemail. Response rates are often under 5%, but concise, well-timed messages tied to a follow-up email can lift overall responses by 20% plus in some playbooks. The win is consistency. The voicemail primes recognition, and the email, or LinkedIn touch, delivers the detail. The most effective outbound sales agency teams treat AMD outcomes as signals that change the cadence. If a number hits voicemail 3 times during peak windows, that's telling you something, so you branch the sequence rather than repeatedly hammering the same door. In practice, that might mean shifting the contact into a voicemail plus email track, recycling later in the quarter, or swapping to a different persona at the account. For SalesHive campaigns, we also align AMD behavior with channel mix. When AMD detects voicemail and we drop a message, we often trigger a same-day follow-up email to keep the touch connected, which is especially effective when our list-building services have verified role, firmographics, and buying context. This is where cold calling services and cold email agency execution reinforce each other instead of operating as separate silos. Common AMD mistakes and how to fix them without slowing down. One of the most costly mistakes is measuring only dials and meetings while ignoring AMD performance. If a carrier shift, dialer update, or new list source changes your voicemail patterns, your connect rate can quietly deteriorate while dial volume stays flat. Add simple checks, voicemail to live ratio, spot-checked misclassifications, and talk minutes per hour so you catch problems early. Another common failure is using the same rules for every segment. Tier 1 executives and broad market leads don't have the same upside or the same tolerance for poor call experiences, and your abandoned call risk matters more when you're running high volume. If you're building an outsourced B2B sales motion, insist on segment-level dialing logic the same way you insist on persona-specific messaging. Finally, teams ignore compliance until they get complaints, and that's backwards. If AMD causes dead air or dropped live answers, you can blow past the 3% abandoned call ceiling quickly in a predictive environment, especially when reps aren't available at the moment of transfer. The fix is operational. Set safe thresholds, keep campaign-level logs, and audit recordings periodically so your efficiency doesn't become a reputational and regulatory liability. Optimization, what to measure weekly, and how to A/B test tuning. Treat time to conversation as the KPI that makes AMD real. Dials per day can be a vanity metric when reps still spend 15% of their day trapped in greetings, call queues, and manual voicemail. What matters is how many live conversations you generate per hour and how quickly a rep reaches meaningful talk time after a dial starts. A simple way to improve without guesswork is a controlled A/B test over 2 to 4 weeks. Keep the same list source, messaging, calling windows, and rep roster, and test a conservative AMD profile against a standard one. Then compare live connect rate, misclassification samples, complaint volume, abandoned call rate, and meetings per 100 live connects. The best configuration is the one that improves outcomes without increasing risk. If you don't have RevOps bandwidth to run these loops, it's often the clearest argument for sales outsourcing. A specialized SDR agency or sales development agency can own the dialer, QA, and compliance monitoring, while your closers stay focused on demos and revenue. This is also why many teams choose an outsourced sales team approach when they need predictable pipeline faster than an internal rebuild can deliver. What's next? AI, higher accuracy, and smarter outbound systems. AMD is trending toward higher accuracy and more context-aware decisions. With research results exceeding 96 to 98% in controlled settings, the direction is clear. AI-enhanced detection will keep improving, especially when combined with better silence detection and larger training datasets. The practical implication is that dialing stacks will increasingly make routing decisions that look more like strategy than plumbing. At the same time, AI voice agents and automation won't replace strong SDRs for complex B2B deals. AMD helps ensure there's a human on the line. AI can assist with low-complexity follow-up and coverage, but qualification and discovery still benefit from skilled reps who can adapt in real time. The winning model looks hybrid. Automate what should be automated and protect your reps' attention for high-value conversations. If you're evaluating cold-calling companies or planning to hire SDRs, prioritize systems thinking over feature checklists. Audit your current AMD setup. Segment it by tier, build a voicemail plus email playbook, and put AMD metrics on the dashboard alongside meetings booked. Whether you do it in-house or through SalesHive, the teams that operationalize AMD as a core outbound engine consistently get more conversations from the same dialing effort.